Hi, good morning. My name is R.N. Bhaskar from BKBB, which is an acronym for Bhaskar Ki Business Baatein. We bring for you every week a policy analysis, a story, or a conversation. But at this time, every weekday, we come to you with news, not exactly news, but news behind the news. We try to analyze things behind the headlines that come in major media. And today I have my anchor with me, Isha. Isha, welcome. Nice to have you with me. Thank you. And then we have three very interesting titles for you. And the titles are first, of course, since yesterday was the first day of the IMF meet, the spring meet, we thought we'd just discuss what the IMF is talking about. The second is a very interesting story, sad story, about how farmer suicides have continued to surge in Maharashtra, notwithstanding politicians' statements. And the third is just a question. Who said inflation's over? Who said inflation's coming down? Okay. Let's begin with the first story. But before I begin the story, just a reminder, please click the subscribe button. Click the like button. It helps the algorithms on YouTube. But most crucial, please inform your friends about it. We'd like them to know that there is a channel like ours which discusses news behind the news. Let's begin with the story. And yes, you can send in your questions. We try to respond to comments and questions at the end of the show, time permitting. Let's begin with the first story. Yesterday was the first day of the spring meeting of the IMF, and they released the World Economic Report. And in the statements made yesterday, the IMF predicted that there would be a slowdown in the world, and the new growth rate was pegged at 2.8%, almost 80 points less than what was predicted earlier. Looks okay, except for one thing. Look at Wall Street's predictions that we gave out yesterday. That we gave out on Friday. Wall Street believes that the growth could be as bad as 1.4%. At 1.4%, the world may shrink faster and more tragically than many people imagine. And there are many causes. One of the biggest causes are Trump's tariffs. The second is, of course, again, owing to America, the two wars that are being staged, one in Europe and one in the Middle East. And the Middle East is gruesome, and Trump fiddles while the Middle East burns. And there is one more thing. If you look at what Malden says, Malden points out how DHL has stopped picking up packages priced under $800. Why is the figure important? The figure is important because till now, there were no duties on low-priced items taken by DHL. Now, if there's a 10% duty, DHL doesn't want to get into the situation of collecting duties from the customer and paying it to the customers. If DHL suspends the import of such packages, trade is going to slow down, even for America, which is a consumption market. Customers will have to go to superstores, pay a higher price. And as Malden Economics also points out, the dollar keeps slipping day by day. The funny part is that the Indian rupee is not getting any stronger. It remains at the same rate even though the dollar has climbed down, which effectively means that the Indian rupee continues to weaken. And that's my first story. Let's go to the other depressing news that Isha brings to you. Isha, can we have your story?
Hello, good morning. Thank you for joining me. The headline I'm bringing you is from The Hindu and it's titled Uptick in Farmer Suicides in Marathwada this year. Marathwada, the region with the second highest rate of farmer suicide in Maharashtra after the Vidarbha, has recorded a rise in the rates of farmer suicides in the first 3 months of 2025, according to data provided by the Divisional Commissioner's Office of Chhatrapati Sambhajinagar. As you can see in the table on your screen, between Jan and March of 2025, 269 farmers died by suicide in the 8 districts of Marathwada alone. In the same period of time last year, 204 deaths were recorded in the 8 districts. So this marks a significant increase, almost one fifth, in the number of suicides that we see. The Divisional Commissioner's Office has also sought funds from the state for distributing them to the families of the deceased. As per data accessed by the Hindu, rupees 295 lakh has been sought by the district collectorates of the 8 districts from the state government. Of this, only rupees 18 or 18 lakh in aid has been distributed by the administration so far. The amount of aid that's actually been distributed to the families of the deceased is paltry relative to the funds that have been sought by the state from the state. For example, in Jalna, there has been no distribution of aid, although 13 suicides were reported, of which 4 families were considered eligible for aid under different government schemes. These rising cases are alarming not only on humanitarian grounds but also because they indicate the failure of the government to protect the agricultural sector. The government responds to these deaths by providing families compensation under various schemes, which, while these might be temporarily helpful to the families of the deceased, they do little to address the structural roots of the issue of farmer suicide. And it this story is also begs us to ask the question of what is causing this rise. Does it have to do with an economic slowdown? Does it have to do with the government's inability to support the agricultural industry? Is this a consequence of climate change and failure of crop as a result? A lot to think about with this story, but that's all from my side. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, sir.
Thank you, Isha. It's very sad, an important story, but it's very sad that the Maharashtra government has not been able to do anything to mitigate farm distress. You may remember that farm distress when the Fadnavis government came to power some time ago, he talked about creating pools of water so that every farmer would get enough water. It looks like the water has not reached them. That's again because the sugarcane lobby takes away all the water, and the farmers in Marathwada and Vidarbha are left without water to grow other crops. So the farmer has land but has no water, and there's crop failure. What else can he do but commit suicide? The farmer's weak, he's not as powerful as the sugarcane barons. And the politicians have hitched the wagon to the sugarcane lobby, and that is where the problem lies. I wish there was some solution, but I don't know whether there's any solution. It could get a lot worse because America is twisting India's arms, and India is very compromised and may submit to allow USA to send more agricultural products into India, including cotton, which is an important crop for Maharashtra. India's already said yes to many of America's demands. If it says yes to more agricultural demands, there could be a bloodbath. And the government, both the center and the state, could have blood on their hands. Sad situation. And thank you, Isha. Let's go to the third story. And the third story is equally worrying because it is about inflation. Look at the numbers. On the right hand side, I've taken government data as reproduced by trading by a website, and you have trading economics saying that according to official data, inflation is at its lowest in so many years. And the government and the Reserve Bank of India both claim that inflation is under control. Is it? Look at the chart by Mint. The chart by Mint shows very clearly that almost every major commodity The claim is one, but the price increase compared to earlier prices has been substantial. Is it any surprise, therefore, that consumers have less purchasing power and there's a decline in consumption all around? Look at what the FCMG companies say. They all tell you that there's a slowdown, there's poor offtake of consumption, and the slowdown in consumption will affect industry, and industrial slowdown will affect your pockets once again. And the government talks of Viksit Bharat. I don't know what this means. The chart tells you that things are not as simple and as rosy as the government would like to say and make you believe. Anyway, that brings me to the end of today's news. Once again, a reminder, do click the subscribe button. Do click the like button. And most important, tell your friends about us so that they also know that there's another side to news as presented by various people. And now let's go to some questions. We're getting some very interesting responses. And thank you very much. I can see some people are enthusiastic in the responses. It's wonderful to hear you. Let me take the first question. The first question is, do you expect crisis in the world since the IMF has predicted a slowdown? Yes, I expect a crisis. I expect a crisis because even the World Bank figures are optimistic. I'd rather go by Wall Street figures, which say that the world will grow only at 1.4%. And when we look at the stock prices falling, when we see the dollar weakening, when we see DHL's not picking up goods, when we see Boeing losing market share, Nvidia, AMD, Intel all losing market share, you know that things are going to be bad for next year. Unless, of course, Trump reverses all his so-called policies which would make America great. Not only will he not make America great, he will leave the world in tatters. And that takes me to the second question. How does one reduce inflation? Good question. Inflation can come down under 2 or 3 conditions. 1, you increase productivity and production. B, you make sure that you do not have high tariffs and taxes, whether for imported goods or for domestic goods. And 3, most important, make sure that the farmer gets more money. The farmer, the rural worker, is about 50% of India's population. If that sector loses money, 50% of India's demand is gone. And that is why you have to concentrate on the farm sector and not listen to what the US has to say. And, well, there is one more question. Let me take up one question. How do we mitigate farmer suicides? It is difficult. We've not done this for the last 20 years. Suicide sector kept on climbing. And the root cause is water. And the main cause for the water not reaching farmers is the sugarcane lobby, because sugarcane is a water guzzling plant. And we've increased acreage for sugar in the past 2 decades by almost double. Sugarcane is meant for river states like Uttar Pradesh. In Maharashtra, the acreage for sugarcane must be limited, must be halved. But all the politicians come from there. All the politicians make the money there. You think they will do anything for the farmer? They're first concerned about themselves. So farmers will continue dying. Agriculture will face distress because politicians want the money and want the spheres of influence. It's a sad situation to be in. Anyway, today all the 3 news items were about dismal conditions coming along. We hope to bring you some better news, but I don't create news. I pick up what comes in the papers. And thank you for being with us. Thank you for listening. And do see us again tomorrow, once again, and tell your friends about us. Have a wonderful day ahead. Take care.